Okay, the third and final video here is for the final exam topics are the most recent stuff. So trig and counting and probability. So let's just, and I feel like we just had trig, so hopefully it's pretty fresh in your mind. So trig, definitions, of course, the evaluating trig functions at special angles, which include our special triangles as well as quadrantal angles, angles terminating on an axis, and the identities. I will give you, just like before, the same identity sheet, so you don't have to memorize those. What you do need to do, however, is you need to be good about the domain and range, not only of trig functions, but also inverse trig functions. So again, you've got to familiarize yourself with those because those are important. So the problems that we had on the last test, you should make sure, now I've given back corrections, you should make sure that you understand those types of problems. Graphing. So name that graph. That still will be the case. And also knowing like various features of a graph. Like, so for example, if I ask you to find a transform sine or cosine graph, can you find where the new peaks and troughs are? Solving trig equations. And paying attention to the interval, whether it's all solutions or solutions in a given interval. And let's see what else with trig. I think that is the main topics. And again, we just had the test, so make sure to look back at that and make sure you understand your errors. And remember, using trig identities to simplify and verify. You shouldn't be resorting back to definitions to do so. In terms of counting and probability, we have not had an assessment on this yet, so there'll be a few problems related to that. And sometimes things fall into one of two categories. Sometimes things could fall into a permutation, where order matters, or a combination, where order doesn't matter, or sometimes it'll fall into neither of those. If repeats occur, it's going to be neither of those. But remember, permutation, the notation, if, for example, I'll say put it in calculator ready form, is equal to NPR, or you could say PNR. And the formula, which you really don't need to know, is n factorial over n minus r factorial. Combination, I prefer the choose notation, but you also, on your calculator, it's NCR, or could be CN comma R. And that formula, it's a permutation, but you're dividing out order, the number of ways of arranging the R things. So it's basically it is the permutation formula divided by the number of ways to arrange the R things you choose. And then looking at the different types of probability problems. So remember, probability of an event occurring is equal to the number of possible outcomes. That's the denominator. And the numerator is the number of ways my specific event can occur. And again, so there'll be some problems on counting and probability. And that about sums it up.